Let's put a new radio in my car. This is my Honda Civic, and for the longest time, it had no radio. Because someone sold a faceplate.
What?
And cut off the antenna. And here is the aftermarket radio that we're going to be putting into our Civic. I got another Pioneer radio, basically a more modern version of the Pioneer radio, hoping that it might be able to connect to the existing connector, but we're about to see. Just a quick tip, so as there's a screw right here in the hole. Same thing on the bottom. Right there. And then you pull down the glove compartment. The last screw is right behind. And it looks like this. Damn. Anyways, it looks like this. Once you take off all the screws and wiggle it out, be careful not to break the plastic, and it's gonna look like this. You just gotta disconnect your cigarette lighter, and then you can just take it out. To disconnect your cigarette lighter, you can just unclip those two clips right there. Next, undo the radio bevel that's holding in the current radio. So it's these two screws right here. 2 Phillips. Boom. From there are only a few remaining steps. First, disconnect the wiring harness and radio antenna from the back of the radio unit. Flatten out the metal tabs holding the bevel in place, and then shimmy the bevel off of the existing radio unit. After a little bit of finessing, you can get the radio DIN sleeve, I guess, this border bracket, radio bracket around the center console, and then when I'm ready, I'm going to fold up these tabs so it can lock in this panel on the top and the bottom, so it can lock in place when I eventually screw it into the center. Now, unfortunately, I'm not quite as lucky. The old harness for the DEH 1600 does not fit into this Pioneer stereo. The pins just don't line up. So that means I'm going to have to slice into the wiring so I can, with the new wiring diagram, with the new wiring harness from the box, into this one. Fortunately, the original wiring harness from the car got spliced off, and then instead the aftermarket harness at the time for the 1600 was sliced in instead. So I'm debating whether or not I can just basically make the slice here and then use butt connectors again, or if I should splice here and then make the connection. So here's my plan. I did a little bit of research, and it turns out that the previous radio that existed in the car, the DEH 1600, has the same wiring coloring as this new Pioneer radio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to splice into the 1600 wiring harness, which is already attached to the factory harness of the car, and I'm going to slice into the new harness into the old harness, and it just matched the colors directly. And now I'm going to cut into the old harness. Right. It's at this point that you should have disconnected the battery already, because if you don't, this is what's going to happen. Right here. Now, this is where everything starts going downhill. Once I connected all the wires together and used the butt connectors to connect the old harness into the new harness, I start plugging them in into the radio, and for some reason the radio would not turn on. So naturally I go back and I check to see if I've blown any fuses. I did not blow a fuse. Alright, so then I start testing all the individual wires, seeing if I get continuity. And it turns out the constant wire was not getting any voltage, which was strange. So then I went back and checked the fuses again, and all the fuses that align with radio were intact. I didn't see any broken fuses. So then I went back to the wire, I disconnected the constant wire, and I thought it might have been a faulty wire. And then I find under the center console this random black and red wire that looks like it got sheared off. And I wasn't sure where it came from or if I accidentally cut it off while I was disassembling the radio. But it got me thinking, did I accidentally cut something? So then I look back under the fuse again, and I notice on the radio fuse there's a power tap. Now, why there is a power tap, I don't know. But it got me an idea where maybe I can power the radio through the power tap fuse. And here's what happened.
Okay, guys, I think we got it to work. I basically just power tapped into the radio fuse because the car stereo wasn't giving me 12 volts of power through the harness. And I think it has to do something with that wire. I really don't know why, but that explains why there's a tap there in the first place. Because, yeah, it turns on now. So you see this yellow wire? So I have the yellow wire tied into this green wire. I'm sorry. I know electricians are gonna hate me for this. I should have used yellow, but I have green instead because it's a similar gauge. And I just ran it all the way through to the power tap. And it turns on.
Now you might think problem solved, right? Well, kinda. Because every time I start the car, the radio turns on. But every time I turn it off and restart the car again, it erases all my pre-saved radio stations and resets the clock every time. That's because I have it tapped into the radio fuse, and the radio fuse turns off when the car's off. It's not constant. So the problem was still not solved.
1 hour later.
And after almost an hour of diagnosing the issue, you know what was finally the problem? It turned out I blew the cigarette lighter fuse. And the cigarette lighter fuse provides constant power to the radio harness. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if maybe for the longest time that fuse has always been broken because I never used a cigarette lighter, even as a phone charger, or maybe when I attempted to cut into the harness while the battery was connected, it blew a fuse. Either way, apparently the cigarette lighter fuse provides constant power to the radio harness, and I didn't notice until I checked every fuse in the owner's manual. And it had nothing to do with that random red-black wire or the power tap.
Basically, connect the colors back together, tie in your antenna, fold the fins up.
And now I can listen to the radio and Bluetooth via my phone. Here's a little snippet.
Adventure to 345 incredible destinations on all 7 continents, including cruises to Alaska.
And it also has a removable face, so the face can't get stolen again. Oh, and also it doesn't reset all my stations and the clock now. Thanks for watching. Bye.